The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. I still remember the exact time, even though I wish I could forget it. I had just fallen asleep, finally letting my body relax for the first time that day. And then the ringing. "Hello," I whispered, trying to shake off the fog of sleep. "Mrs. Cartwright?" A man's voice. It sounded distant, like he was speaking through a tunnel. "Yes. Who is this?" "I'm afraid I have some bad news. This is Officer Reynolds. I'm calling about your son, Michael." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What's happened to him?" I almost couldn't get the words out, my chest tightening with every passing second. "He's been in an accident, ma'am. He didn't make it." The phone slipped from my hand, and I collapsed to the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. The room spun as I tried to process the words. My only child, my boy, gone, just like that. I woke up hours later, disoriented and lying on the cold kitchen floor. I wasn't sure how much time had passed, but I knew I had to get moving. I couldn't stay here. Not in this house. Not after that call. The next few days were a blur. There were people coming and going, funeral arrangements to make, and a steady stream of condolences. But it was all just noise. I couldn't focus on anything. I just needed to get through it, to put one foot in front of the other. It wasn't until I started sorting through Michael's things that it hit me. His belongings, his life, scattered in boxes around the room. I didn't even know where to start. It felt like he was still alive, just waiting to walk through the door, asking why I was rummaging through his things. That's when I found it. A letter from the lawyer. My heart skipped. I hadn't been prepared for what was inside, Michael's will. And then, as I read the lines, my hands trembled. He'd left everything to me. Everything. $24 million. I couldn't breathe. I sat down, the weight of the paper in my hands, the realization sinking in. It felt like a cruel joke. This wasn't supposed to be mine. He wasn't supposed to be gone. The money didn't matter. Nothing mattered without him. I thought I might finally have a moment to catch my breath when I heard the knock. I wasn't ready for this. Not yet. I opened the door to see her standing there. Her, his ex-wife, Rebecca. I hadn't seen her in 15 years, not since she'd walked out of Michael's life, not long after their divorce. She'd left him broken, and I couldn't understand why she was here now. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I'm sure you've heard about the inheritance," she said, her voice as cold as I remembered. I nodded, trying to keep my composure. "Yes, but what do you want from me?" "I'm entitled to half of it," she replied, her eyes narrowing. I was his wife. I deserved my share. The audacity. I stared at her, disbelief and anger bubbling up inside me. "You've got to be kidding me," I spat. "You left him, Rebecca. You abandoned him when he needed you most. And now you think you're entitled to his money." She crossed her arms. "He didn't need me then, and he doesn't need you now. But I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for what's rightfully mine." I shook my head. "You're not getting a penny. Don't be foolish, Jane. You know what kind of lawyer I have. This is a fight you won't win." My heart pounded as the anger built inside me. I wanted to scream at her, tell her to leave, but I couldn't. I was shaking. My son's death was still too fresh. This woman, who had been nothing but a ghost in our lives for so long, was now making demands. "I don't care what you think you're entitled to," I said through gritted teeth. "You're not getting anything. And if you think for 1 second I'm going to let you destroy what little piece I have left, you're wrong." Her lips curled into a smirk. "We'll see about that." The knock at the door wasn't unexpected, but I wasn't ready for it. My heart seemed to stop for a moment before picking up speed again, beating loudly in my chest. I hadn't been able to find any peace since the funeral, and now, here she was, standing at my doorstep. Rebecca, his ex-wife, the woman who had walked away from my son when he needed her most. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at her. "Rebecca," I said, my voice coming out harsher than I meant. "What are you doing here?" She smiled, but it wasn't a kind one. "I need to talk to you, Jane." I stepped aside, letting her in but not without hesitation. I wanted to slam the door in her face. I wanted to yell at her, tell her she had no right to show up here after everything. But instead, I just felt numb. What was she even doing here? After all these years? She stepped in, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floor as if she owned the place. I didn't invite her to sit, but she did anyway, perching herself on the arm of the couch like she belonged. "You've read the will, I assume," she said, crossing her legs, her tone condescending. "The inheritance? It's only right that I get my share." I blinked. "What? You have no right." "No right?" She cut me off with a raised hand, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "I was his wife. I'm entitled to half of that money." "Half." The word felt like a slap. "You left him, Rebecca. You walked away when he was drowning. Don't you dare act like you have some claim to this." She shrugged, that insufferable smirk still tugging at her lips. "I don't have time for your guilt trips, Jane. I'm here to talk business, not about your feelings." I felt the rage simmering inside me, boiling just beneath the surface. I fought to keep my voice steady, to keep from shouting. "You don't get to come in here and demand anything. That money is for Michael's family, his son and me, not you." Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned in, her voice colder now. "Michael and I had a life together. We had a child together. That money, I deserve my part of it." I tried to reason with her, though every word felt like an effort. "You left him when things got hard. You chose to abandon him, Rebecca. You think you can just waltz back in after all these years and take what's ours?" She leaned back into the couch, her hands resting on her lap. "It's not personal, Jane. It's business, and I'm not going to let you stand in the way of what's rightfully mine." I shook my head, my vision starting to blur with the anger building inside me. "You have no idea what you're talking about. He loved you. He wanted to make things work. But you gave up. You walked away, and now you think you deserve to profit off his death? This isn't your money. It was never yours." Her face twisted with irritation. "And yet, I'm still here, aren't I? Telling you what's fair." I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms as I tried to stay calm. I couldn't let her manipulate me. Not again. "No," I said, my voice low but firm. "You're not getting anything. You don't get to just show up and claim what doesn't belong to you. I'm not going to let you ruin his memory." Rebecca's eyes narrowed even further, her expression turning colder. "Fine. If you think you can keep me from what's mine, we'll see about that." She stood, grabbing her purse and adjusting her coat, her actions all too practiced. "I'll be back. And when I come, you'll be ready to talk. Don't think you can ignore this." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, trembling with frustration. I closed the door behind her, the weight of the conversation crashing down on me. I felt sick, my mind reeling. How dare she? How could she just come in here like that, demanding what was ours? But more than that, something inside me cracked open, grief and anger mixing in a way I couldn't explain. This woman, this stranger, had no right to come into my life to make these demands. Yet there she was, and she wasn't going to stop. I couldn't let her win. I had to protect what was left of my son, his memory, his legacy. I had to stand up, even if it meant facing her again. She thought she could just take what didn't belong to her, but she hadn't counted on me. And that was her mistake. I wasn't surprised when Rebecca showed up again, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. This time, she wasn't alone. The tall man beside her, his gray suit and slick back hair, looked like trouble. He had the air of someone who thought they could crush me under the weight of their legal jargon. Rebecca shot me a cold look before turning to the man. "This is my lawyer, Mr. Harris. He's here to make sure we settle this quickly." I forced myself to swallow the knot in my throat, trying to keep my composure. "You're wasting your time, Rebecca," I said, my voice steady but laced with anger. "I already told you, you're not getting a dime." Mr. Harris didn't say anything for a moment, just glanced at the paperwork he was holding, like he was already prepared for a fight. Then, with a confident smile, he spoke. "Ms. Cartwright," he began, his voice smooth, almost patronizing. "The legal system isn't as simple as you think. Your son's estate is more complex than you realize. We'll be filing for a portion of the inheritance, and we intend to have this settled. You have no case against it." I clenched my fists at my sides. My heart pounded, but I wasn't about to let them intimidate me. I had to stand my ground. "No, I said sharply, meeting Mr. Harris's gaze. You don't get to waltz in here and pretend like you have any rights. You left him. He chose me, his family, over you. Now you think you can come in here and take what's his. Rebecca shifted her weight, tapping her foot as if she were bored. You don't understand, Jane. Michael's death changes everything. He didn't leave you everything out of kindness. It was out of necessity. I was his wife for 10 years. We built a life together. That counts for something. I didn't even want to hear her talk about it. You left him when things got hard. You were no part of his life when he needed you most. How dare you stand here and act like you deserve anything? Rebecca's eyes glinted with something I couldn't quite place. I'm not here to argue about the past. I'm here to get what's rightfully mine. Her words stung, but I wasn't about to show it. I turned to Mr. Harris, trying to keep my voice as calm as possible. And you, I said, glaring at him, you're just as bad. A lawyer trying to make money off of someone else's tragedy. Mr. Harris didn't even flinch. I'm simply doing my job, Miss Cartwright. As are you, I suppose. His tone was smooth, almost mocking. I felt my pulse quicken, the anger rising in me like a storm. My mind flashed back to Michael, how he had suffered, how he had begged for her to come back, and how she had refused him. I could feel my chest tightening, the weight of everything bearing down on me. Rebecca crossed her arms, her expression unchanged. You don't understand, do you? This isn't just about the money. It's about Michael. I have a right to be part of his legacy, to have a say in how things are handled. I could feel my emotions teetering on the edge, my frustration and hurt blending together in a way that made me want to scream. But instead, I took a deep breath, trying to clear my mind. No, I said again, forcing the word out through gritted teeth. You don't have a right. You walked away. You left him. But the more I spoke, the more I felt myself losing control. The anger that had been driving me slowly turned into something else. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, overwhelming in its intensity. Was she right? Had I been wrong to shut her out of his life? Had I been too protective, too stubborn? The doubt crept in like a shadow, filling the empty spaces where my resolve had once stood. Could she have a claim? But then I remembered his face, the pain in his eyes when he spoke of her, the desperation, the way he begged me not to contact her. He'd been a broken man by the time she left him, and I had been the one to pick up the pieces. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve him, and she sure as hell didn't deserve a penny of his money. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. No, I repeated, my voice gaining strength. You don't get to do this. Not now, not ever. I'm not giving in. Rebecca's eyes darkened, but she didn't say anything. Mr. Harris gave her a quick glance, and then he stood up, smoothing his suit. We'll see you in court then, Miss Cartwright. With that, they turned and left, leaving me standing there, my heart still racing. But as much as I wanted to feel victorious, I couldn't shake the feeling of doubt. Was I really doing the right thing? I wasn't sure anymore, but I couldn't give up. Not now. Not for her. The fight had just begun. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing over everything that had happened. Rebecca's sudden appearance, her demands, the lawyer, none of it made sense. After all these years, why now? Why come back for what was clearly not hers? It was more than just the money. It had to be. But what was it that I was missing? I couldn't stop thinking about her words. I have a right to be part of his legacy. She wasn't just here for the inheritance. No, this was personal. It was as if she had a score to settle, something more than a financial claim. She wanted more than a portion of his estate. She wanted something deeper. She wanted closure, or perhaps revenge. Against me, against Michael, against everything she had lost when she walked away from him all those years ago. I needed answers. I needed to understand what had driven her to show up now, of all times. I sat down at the desk, sifting through old papers, Michael's life, his history, the records from the divorce. I hadn't thought much about it until now. But suddenly, everything felt like a piece of a puzzle I hadn't bothered to complete. There were letters from the lawyer, divorce papers, a few scattered photographs of happier times. As I flipped through them, I noticed something strange. Rebecca had always been the one to handle everything. She'd controlled the narrative back then, always the one with the final say. That's when I found it. An old, handwritten letter from Michael tucked behind one of the photos. I could barely read the words, but I made out enough. He'd written about how he felt abandoned, how he had begged her to come back, how he had tried, time and time again, to make things work. She never did. She just left. And reading his words, I felt the weight of everything he had endured. The loneliness, the sadness that had slowly consumed him, until I was the one to help him pick up the pieces. It was all starting to make sense. Rebecca wasn't here just for the money. She was here for something darker, something deeper. She had abandoned Michael when he was at his weakest, and now she was trying to reclaim what she felt was hers. But it wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the legacy. She was trying to rewrite history. She was trying to regain control over the one thing that had slipped away from her, Michael's life, and all that came with it. The more I dug, the more I felt like I was uncovering a truth that I had always known but refused to admit. She had never really left. She had always been lurking in the background, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, with Michael gone, she thought she could swoop in and take what she believed was owed to her. I clenched my fists, my body shaking with frustration and anger. This wasn't just a legal battle. It was a battle for control. It was a battle for the past, for who Michael had been and who he had become in the years before he passed. She wanted to erase all that, to take away the one thing he had left behind. His son, his legacy. But I couldn't let her. I couldn't let her rewrite what had happened, couldn't let her manipulate her way into my life again. This was my fight now. I had to protect Michael's memory. I had to protect my son's future. I couldn't let her destroy everything he had worked for. I made up my mind then. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. Let her twist the narrative into something it wasn't. I didn't need to fight her with anger, though. No, I needed to outsmart her. I needed to take control of the situation, to make sure she understood that she couldn't walk in here and take what didn't belong to her. I wasn't just going to stand there and let her manipulate the situation. I was going to fight back. I was done being a victim. I was done feeling powerless. Rebecca thought she had the upper hand, but she had no idea what she was up against. I never thought I would have to defend my son's reputation. It felt like a betrayal I could never have anticipated, one that cut deeper than anything I had imagined. Rebecca's arrival had been one thing, but what I learned about her actions in the days that followed was something else entirely. I was sitting at my kitchen table, scanning through some papers when I overheard a conversation outside. It was Rebecca, her voice unmistakable. I froze, straining to hear the words, and the more I listened, the more I understood just how far she was willing to go. She's lying, she was saying. Michael wasn't the saint she thinks he was. He had his demons, you know. He was reckless, drank too much, gambled away most of his money. That's why we split up. It wasn't just me. It was him. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart raced as I pressed my ear against the wall, trying to absorb what I was hearing. She was telling anyone who would listen that Michael, my son, the one who had fought so hard to be a good man, wasn't who I thought he was. She was smearing his name, digging up old ghosts from the past that we had both left behind years ago. It wasn't just about money. It was about destroying everything Michael had built in his life, his legacy, his memory. I didn't know what hurt more, the words themselves or the fact that she was using them to tear him down, even in death. My hand shook as I grabbed the phone and dialed the number. When her voice answered, I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Rebecca, I know what you've been saying. She didn't seem surprised. Oh, Jane, I didn't think you'd find out this quickly. I was just telling the truth. The truth. I spat. You're telling lies. You're trying to ruin everything he worked for. Everything he ever tried to be. Well, maybe it's time someone said it. Her voice was cold, calculated. You think Michael was a hero? He wasn't. He had his flaws, Jane. He wasn't perfect. I could feel the anger building, bubbling inside me like a volcano on the edge of eruption. He had his flaws, yes, but he was my son, and you left him when he needed you most. You don't get to come back now and destroy his name just because you didn't get your way. She laughed, and I heard the bitterness in it. You still don't get it, do you? I'm not doing this because I didn't get my way. I'm doing it because I am owed something. He owed me something. And now you're trying to keep everything for yourself. You're trying to make him out to be some perfect angel, and I'm sorry, Jane, but he wasn't. The betrayal hit me like a slap. I could feel the tears pricking at the edges of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not now. Not when I was so furious. She was trying to paint him as a villain, a man who had been reckless, irresponsible. And maybe he had his faults, his mistakes, just like anyone else, but that didn't give her the right to tear him down now. Not when he was gone. Michael may have made mistakes, I said, my voice shaking but strong, but he was a good man. And you're not going to rewrite that history. Not now. Not ever. Rebecca's voice softened, but only just. I'm not here for your approval, Jane. I'm here to get what's mine. And you can't stop me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I knew what I had to do. I slammed the phone down, my mind racing. This wasn't just about inheritance. It was about control. Rebecca was trying to take away everything Michael had fought for, his reputation, his legacy, his place in this world. She wanted to make him a shadow of the man I knew, a man who had struggled to become something more than his past. The rage inside me began to boil over. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't let her destroy him even now. The fury I felt for Rebecca was like a fire burning through me. She wasn't just trying to take money. She was trying to take his memory, and that was something I wouldn't allow. I had been letting her push me around, but no more. It was time for me to step up, to fight for what was rightfully mine, not just for the money, but for Michael's name, for the man he had become before he was gone. Rebecca had made a grave mistake. She had underestimated me, and now I was going to make sure she knew just how wrong she was. I could feel it in my bones, the weight of the decision I had just made. There was no turning back now. I wasn't going to stand by and let Rebecca rewrite everything that mattered. I wasn't going to let her destroy my son's legacy, not without a fight. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. I needed someone who would fight with me, someone who understood just how high the stakes were. I couldn't afford to lose this, not just for me, but for Michael, too. Ms. Cartwright, I'll start gathering the documents we need, my lawyer said, his voice steady and confident. We'll need to prove the legitimacy of your claims, why Rebecca is not entitled to the inheritance, and why she's misrepresenting your son's character. Make sure we protect Michael's reputation, I said, my voice hard. I don't care about the money. I care about making sure she doesn't get away with this. Understood, he replied. We'll move quickly. I'll have everything in place by next week. As soon as I hung up, a wave of resolve washed over me. I had no idea how far Rebecca would go, but I wasn't about to let her have the last word. I had to stand my ground, for Michael's sake, for my own. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, meetings, and paperwork. Every moment I spent preparing for this battle only solidified my decision. I wasn't backing down. I wasn't letting her win. Then came the letter from Rebecca's lawyer. My heart sank when I saw the official-looking envelope. I knew what it was before I even opened it. She wasn't going to play nice. I could feel her presence, like a shadow creeping over me, always watching, always pushing. The letter was a barrage of accusations. She claimed that Michael's estate wasn't legally handled, that he had been reckless with his finances, that I had manipulated him into leaving everything to me. It was all lies, every word of it. But I had to respond. I had no choice. I spent hours crafting the reply with my lawyer, making sure every point was airtight. I knew I had to be careful. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. One wrong move, and Rebecca would twist it against me. She was playing a long game, and I had underestimated how smart she was. Rebecca wasn't just after money. She wanted control. She wanted to rewrite the story of my son's life, to make him look like someone he wasn't. She was playing me, playing my grief, and I could feel it. Every time I thought I had her cornered, she found a way to slip out, to manipulate the situation in her favor. The next confrontation came sooner than I expected. Rebecca showed up at my house unannounced, her lawyer right behind her. She was playing her part perfectly, pretending to be calm, collected, like she had nothing to lose. But I saw through it. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness in her jaw. She was angry, and she was desperate. You really think you can stop me? She asked, her eyes narrowing as she stepped inside. I'm not trying to stop you, Rebecca, I said, my voice cold and steady. I'm trying to protect what's mine. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're just too emotional, Jane. This isn't about you. It's about what's rightfully mine. I could feel my anger rising, but I kept my voice even. What's rightfully yours? You're not entitled to anything. You left him. You walked away when he needed you. You don't get to come back now and tear him down just because you didn't get your way. Rebecca stepped closer, and I could smell the faint scent of her perfume, reminding me of years gone by, of a time when I thought I'd never have to deal with her again. You'll regret this, Jane, she said, her voice low and threatening. You don't know what I'm capable of. I felt the heat of her words, but it only fueled my determination. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I was done being manipulated, done letting her take control of my life. This was my fight now. I'm not afraid of you, I said, meeting her gaze with all the strength I could muster. You can try to twist everything you want, but I won't let you destroy his memory. You don't own him anymore. You never did. She stepped back, her face tightening in frustration. This isn't over, Jane. I know, I said, my voice firm, but it will be soon, and you're going to lose. The morning was heavy, thick with tension I couldn't shake. I'd thought I had prepared myself for anything Rebecca could throw at me, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to hear. It came in the form of a phone call. My hands were trembling as I picked up the receiver, already knowing who it was. Jane. Rebecca's voice came through cold and steady. We need to talk. I took a deep breath. I don't have anything left to say to you. Oh, I think you do. There was a sharp edge to her words now, something almost smug. I could make your life very difficult, you know. Very public. I frowned, confused. What do you mean? She paused for a moment, letting the silence linger, drawing out my anxiety. I know about your son, Jane. About his secret life. My heart dropped. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about, she replied, her voice dripping with satisfaction. The gambling, the debts he never paid off, the people he owed money to. You think he kept that hidden, but I know the truth. I've always known. The world seemed to slow as I processed her words, each one hitting me like a hammer. My son. My Michael. Gambling? Debts? I had no idea what she was talking about. The Michael I knew had been trying to turn his life around, had been fighting to be better for his son. Hadn't he? But now, in the pit of my stomach, something dark was stirring. Something that I had kept buried. Something I wasn't ready to confront. Rebecca's words kept echoing in my head. I know the truth. She continued, her tone now more cruel, more menacing. I could go public with this, Jane. Tell everyone about Michael's mistakes. His failures. It wouldn't be hard, you know. You can't protect his reputation anymore. I felt like I was drowning. Everything I thought I had known about my son, everything I had believed, was starting to unravel. I was a mother who had fought for him, fought to protect him, even after his death. But now, it felt like everything was slipping through my fingers. Please, I whispered, my voice trembling despite myself, you don't have to do this. Rebecca's laugh was cold, unfeeling. I don't have to, Jane. Oh, but I want to. And I will, if you don't give me what I want. I could feel the air in the room growing thicker, my chest tightening with panic. How had this gone so far? How had this become about something so ugly? It wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even about her twisted sense of entitlement. This was about her trying to tear down everything my son had ever been. It was about destroying his memory. I had always known Michael had his struggles. I had always told myself he was doing his best to overcome them. But hearing it from Rebecca, hearing it like this, made everything feel like a lie. She wasn't just threatening me now. She was threatening my son's very legacy, his reputation, the one thing I had left of him. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing, but the tears still came. I wanted to scream, to beg her to stop, but I couldn't. The truth was, I didn't know if I could stop her. And for a brief moment, I felt a sharp, sickening panic, a feeling I couldn't remember ever experiencing before. I was losing control. I was losing my son's memory, the one thing that had meant more to me than anything else. But then, as quickly as the panic surged, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a loud, dramatic shift, but a quiet, subtle one. I wasn't going to let Rebecca destroy everything. I wasn't going to let her win. She had crossed the line, and now I was going to have to fight for my son, for everything he had stood for the truth. I stood up, my hands shaking, but my resolve hardening. You think you can control me, Rebecca? You think you can make me afraid of you? Well, you're wrong. I'm not afraid of you anymore. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her processing my words, trying to figure out if I was bluffing. You'll regret this, she said finally, but there was a tremor in her voice now. She wasn't so sure anymore. Maybe I will, I replied, my voice calm, despite everything I was feeling. But it doesn't matter. You won't get away with it. The line went dead. I stood there for a moment, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling like I had just stepped into a war I didn't want. But I had no choice. I couldn't let her destroy everything. I couldn't let her tear apart what little I had left of my son. I wasn't going to fight fire with fire, though. That wasn't my way. I was going to fight for the truth. I was going to fight for Michael's honor. And if Rebecca wanted to go down this path, she'd learn that I would not be so easily broken. The battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time I was ready. The final confrontation came like a storm I couldn't avoid. And I knew it was the moment that would define everything. Rebecca had pushed me to the edge, manipulated my grief, twisted the truth, and now she had nowhere else to turn but the courtroom. I stood in the lawyer's office, my heart pounding in my chest. My attorney had prepared me for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare me for facing her again. She sat across from me, her arms crossed, her lawyer beside her. The smugness in her face had faded, replaced by something more dangerous, desperation. Are you really going to put your son's memory on the line for money? She sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. I took a deep breath. I'm not putting his memory on the line. You are. I turned to the judge, trying to block her out. Your Honor, Rebecca left my son when he was at his lowest. She's here now because she didn't get what she wanted, and she's willing to destroy everything for it. His legacy isn't up for grabs. Rebecca shot me a venomous look. You're lying. Michael had secrets. He wasn't the man you think he was. Everyone should know that. Her words cut deep. They were the same words she had tried to spread, the rumors she had spread like poison. But this time, I wasn't letting them sink in. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into doubting my son, into doubting myself. The truth had always been with me. It had always been his love for his son, his desire to build a future, and the strength he had shown in the face of everything. My son wasn't perfect, but he was a good man, I said, my voice steady now. He loved his family, and he fought for the right to be a better man. That's who he was. He wasn't the man you're trying to paint him as. And you walked away when he needed you most. Rebecca's lawyer tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. I'm not done, I said firmly. You can't erase the truth, Rebecca. You can't destroy my son's name. And you can't take what doesn't belong to you. The silence in the room was thick, almost suffocating. I could feel the eyes of the judge on me, his gaze hard but fair. I wasn't sure what he was thinking, but I knew one thing. Rebecca's lies were crumbling under the weight of the truth. You think this is about money, I said, looking directly at her now. But you're wrong. It's not about the inheritance. It never was. It's about control. It's about you trying to rewrite history, to make yourself part of a story you abandoned. You think you can take what's mine, but you've lost. Rebecca's face twisted in fury, her eyes flashing with rage. You think you've won, don't you? She hissed. You think that because you've got a lawyer and some piece of paper, you've somehow won. But you're wrong. You don't know what you're up against. But I did. I knew exactly what I was up against now. And I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Her threats, her manipulation, they didn't work on me. I had already been through the worst of it. I had already faced the devastation of losing my son. Nothing she could say would ever hurt me again. The judge leaned forward, his gaze steady and unwavering. I've reviewed all the evidence. The will is clear. Rebecca Cartwright has no legal claim to the inheritance. The accusations against Michael are unsubstantiated, and there's no proof to support the claims made here. I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was tempered by a deeper feeling. I had fought for Michael, for his reputation, for the truth, but it wasn't the victory I had expected. I hadn't expected to feel empty, like a part of me was missing, like there was still something broken inside. Rebecca stood up, her face pale, her eyes wild with disbelief. "This isn't over," she spat, her voice trembling with anger. "I'll fight you every step of the way." But I knew better. The fight was over. She had lost. She had nothing left to fight for, nothing she could take from me. I stood there, letting the moment sink in. The weight of everything that had happened, everything that I had fought for, finally crashing down on me. My son's name was safe. His legacy was intact. But at what cost? Rebecca walked out, her steps heavy with defeat. I watched her go, not with satisfaction, but with a strange, quiet sense of resolution. I had won, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like a part of me had been chipped away, like I had lost something along the way. The truth had saved me. It had saved Michael, but it had also left me broken in ways I hadn't expected. I would never be the same. I turned to face my lawyer, who was giving me a look I couldn't read. "It's over," he said softly, as if trying to reassure me. But I wasn't sure it ever really would be. This was the price of justice, the price of fighting for the truth. And I wasn't sure I was ready to face that price just yet. The day the inheritance was finally settled, it should have been a victory. The $24 million was now mine, as it had always been meant to be. I had fought for it, defended it, and I had won. But when the paperwork was signed, when the last of the legal battles was over, I didn't feel the rush of triumph I thought I would. The victory felt hollow, like something had slipped through my fingers. The house was still empty, still haunted by the ghost of Michael's absence. I moved through the rooms, looking at the places he used to be, his favorite chair by the window, the old guitar he never played anymore, the photos of him smiling at moments I couldn't fully remember without a pang of grief. The money was nothing compared to the memories. The wealth didn't fill the space where my son used to be. I hadn't expected this, but I had also known deep down that the moment I got the inheritance, it would be too late. Money was just money. It didn't bring back what I'd lost. It couldn't heal the wounds I had buried so deep inside me, the ones that had formed the moment I lost him. As I sat down in the chair that used to be his, I realized that the victory wasn't really mine at all. I had been fighting to keep him with me, to protect his name, to make sure that no one could tear down what was left of him. But in the process, I had forgotten something. I needed to let him go. It took me this long to understand that. All this time, I had been holding on to him, fighting for him in ways I thought were necessary. But the truth was, I couldn't keep fighting forever. He was gone. And no matter how much I tried to hold on to his memory, no matter how much I tried to shield him from the world, it wasn't going to bring him back. Rebecca was gone, and with her, the last vestiges of that battle were over. She was now nothing more than a distant memory, a cautionary tale of greed, and the lengths people will go to for something they don't deserve. I'd seen her true nature, and it wasn't something I ever had to deal with again. But I wasn't the same. She had driven me to fight for something I thought was mine, something I thought I had to protect at all costs. But in the end, it was never about the money, the power, or the inheritance. It was about Michael, about who he was, about the person he had tried to become. And I had done everything I could to honor that. It wasn't until I finally let go of the anger, the bitterness, and the guilt that I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer defined by what had happened. I was no longer defined by my son's loss or Rebecca's betrayal. I was just me, a woman who had fought for the truth and had finally found peace. The scars would always be there, hidden beneath the surface, but they were no longer controlling me. The money was a part of the puzzle, a piece that had been necessary, but not the whole picture. The real treasure, the real victory, was learning how to live without looking back. How to forgive myself for holding on too tightly, for believing that I could somehow bring him back. The house felt quieter now, but it was a peaceful kind of quiet. I wasn't trying to hold on to anything anymore. I wasn't trying to fix what was broken. What mattered now was moving forward, accepting the loss, and finding a way to live with the emptiness. I stood up, walking slowly through the house, touching the things that reminded me of him. The guitar, the photos, the memories, and then I stopped in front of the window, looking out at the world beyond. For the first time in years, I felt free. I had finally accepted what had happened, what I had lost. And in that moment, I realized something else. I was ready to live again. Not for the money, not for the fight, but for me, for the person I had become. And maybe that was the greatest victory of all.